Hello everybody, this is Colleen from Rosa of Swords on Instagram, Tumblr, Patreon, and other places. And I'm here today to participate in the hashtag SBD, which stands for Surrounded by Decks. And the idea of this tag is to explore interpretations of a major arcana card through various decks and the different kinds of intuitive hits you get from the images. So I chose Justice because I kind of had to. She's everything. Justice is definitely my card, but even as I was pulling her out, I was like, I should do Judgment because that's my card of the month, and I'm struggling with it. So I might do another one of these later in the week to see if I can get some more clarity there. So I don't even know how many decks I grabbed. I tried to do a fair mix of like ones that I'm really comfortable with the meanings on and ones that I'm not, so that it would be a little bit of a challenge. So let's dive in. I guess because it's on top of my pile, I can start with the Rider-Waite-Smith. You're going to see a lot of my hand today, I apologize. Trying to get this camera to behave. So, you know, this is our classic Justice. She's between her two pillars, much like the High Priestess, except that, you know, both of hers are gray. She's got a crown on. She's clearly important. This is a clear-sighted Justice. She doesn't have the blindfold. She's got the scales in one hand down and then the sword up, which is kind of magician-y. So I kind of see higher reason equals just deliberations, particularly because the sword is air, sword suit. I always see the sword suit in this card. So I really see this particular Justice as like reasoning, being very logic driven, putting aside personal emotions and looking at the facts, because it's a very, very swordsy take on the card. And the fact that the sword is that it is that sort of as above, so below motion really makes me think of the Magician and this idea of higher reasoning equals just verdict. And that's really how I see this card. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. It's all right. It's fine. Maybe I'll skip ahead to my favorite in comparison. All right, this one's a bit busy. It's the Aquarian, but it is my absolute favorite because she looks so gentle. She does have her scales and her sword is sheathed and in front of her. She's not ready to take it out. She's going to listen to what you have to say before she makes her deliberations. This is a Justice you can. I really like this. I've nicknamed this one Gentle Justice. That's what she is to me. And she's just so important to me. I love the care that she takes into her decisions, and that her pillars are actually plants here, which I think talks a lot about growth, which I'll get back to in other cards as well. Because part of the growing process is culling. And actually, I might use that as a segue into another favorite. Another highly intricate deck that will hopefully focus. The Janasa Joust. This is Justiza. And you can see here that this is pruning and cutting away of a plant, and that the plant is Justice itself, that you need to cut away what isn't working, what doesn't serve your highest good, your highest justice, in order to grow and be fair. So that's what I get from that one. It's very much like self-gardening. Does that make sense? Self-gardening? Hopefully that made sense. I guess we'll take a random one from in here. It's another favorite. At first, I was mad when I saw this because I don't like it when justice isn't a woman. But she's right here, courthouse justice. There she is. And I like this justice because it's Batman, which really says, the system is flawed. Take it into your own hands. Only you can prevent forest fires. I mean, this is vigilante justice. This is Bruce Wayne. This is, you might be allied unofficially with the police force, but you're not part of the police force. You're an independent entity and you make your own decisions. So it's really actually very empowering justice, and also one that you need to look out for, because Bruce is a deeply flawed human being. And while he does a lot of good, arguably he does a lot of bad too. For further commentary on this, you can watch the auto-tuned fight between Hank and John Green about whether or not Batman is really a hero. Let's see if there are any other oddball. I'm gonna get the oddball ones out before I get back to the sword and scales ones. But I will save the one not safe for work one for the end, so that if you don't like that, you can just turn it off. Okay, this one nearly drove me crazy. You still got your two pillars, you still got a lady, but you've got no scales, you've got no sword. She looks like she's praising something. And ultimately, I think what I decided for this card for me is this is justice has been served. Like, it's being decreed right now. The decision is made. You can't go back. Which is a very different take than the sort of deliberation process that I see in a lot of the other cards, or the call to take action. This is, you have to live with the verdict of the courts. You have to live with what justice has been served. It's being decreed right now, and you have to live with it, which is, it's not my favorite, but this is the one from the Disciples Tarot. I don't know if I said that or not. Obviously, Batman was the Justice League. And I think other than that, I've named all the decks I've used so far. That's good. Good job. This is another one that I struggled with. It's a theme. All the ones that don't have swords and scales I struggled with. Because I really like looking at how they interact with their sword and scales. This is from the Idiosyncratic, which I don't know if I'm saying that right. This one goes back to, I think, what I had in the Janasa Joust a little bit, which is that sometimes you need to let something die to let something else grow, which in the Janasa was more of like, you need to let parts of yourself go in order to let other parts grow. You need to guide it's more of a guided growth kind of thing. This one it's like almost a death card. It's, you know what, it's better, sometimes things just have to die. It's a very death and taxes kind of card. Not my favorite justice. Not my favorite justice, but it's okay. I struggle with this deck a lot just because a lot of the images are, I appreciate reading about what Cracked Amethyst thought about when making the deck, but it's not a deck that comes intuitively to me. But I appreciate the art way too much not to have it. All right, let's get back into the comfort zone. Lay these ones out so I can pick them in an order that makes a little bit more sense. All right. I guess we could go with some of the blind one. That makes sense. This is the Line Strider. I have worked with this card extensively, and I still don't always get it. She definitely looks like she's blind to me here. Which to me, there was an X-Men character, and I can't think of their name because Marvel was always my second fiddle. I'm more of a DC gal. I think she was the mother of Rogue, or adoptive mother of Rogue, partner to Mystique. I know everything about this woman except who she is. And she was your classic blind prophet. And that's what this card reminds me of. This reminds me of that character. Her name might have been Destiny. That sounds just cheesy enough to possibly be true. So this justice makes me think about it makes me think of like Tiresias in Greek mythology, and in like plays like Oedipus the King and Antigone, where it's often the people who can't see who provide the most wisdom. It's that idea of like an impartial third party, but also the idea of like an all-knowing, all-seeing entity who can't like Tiresias, who can't literally see, but he's the one who sees more clearly than anyone else what's going on here. He can see that these are the patterns that the gods have put forth, etc., etc. And everybody hates him for it. Poor Tiresias. I feel like he gets beaten up all the time. Note to self, don't become a blind prophet. No one likes a blind prophet. So that's what I get from that one. It's very Tiresias, very whatever this X-Men character's name was, where it's that idea of this like blind prophetess, blind prophet. The people who can't see often know the most about and can see the most about what's going on. Which I guess ties into the justice system too, because it's this idea of like a jury being people who are from outside the situation and deliberate what happens. So there's that. I guess. And this is the justice that always drags me. This is the Dreaming Way Tarot, which is a gorgeous deck. And I always feel like, first of all, she's creepy. She looks like the girl from The Ring. Second of all, I love that she holds the scales weirdly. I love that she's holding the blade of the sword, but it's not cutting her. There's a sense of ownership over justice here, where it's like, yes, she's blind and she's got like green on her face. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if I can focus this better. She's got like green under her eyes and blue on her lips, which I think in a lot of things in similar art styles suggests like illness or not necessarily being quite human. But I also see a lot of power in this. Like, it almost feels like she's handing you the sword. Like she's saying, here's the decision, but acting on it is your choice. You need to take this sword from me, and you need to do the work yourself. I love her for that. She's one of my all-time favorite justices. Maybe not as high up there as the Aquarian, but pretty high up there. Which I think that segues nicely into this one, which I don't know if we will be able to focus on it. Hopefully we will. This is the Fountain Tarot. She's lifting the veil. She has gone within, she has contacted her higher wisdom, and she is ready to deliver her message. She is here to make deliberations. She is ready. I love the triangle that seems like almost be coming out of her. It's almost like her words, her verdict. So I think that's it. I think that this is, it's almost like a next step to the High Priestess card. You've gone within, you've done the hard work, it's time to lift the veil and act it out. Which is pretty cool. Okay, what next? What next? This is the Star Child, which I haven't worked with a lot actually for this card. I like that she's not actually holding the scales. And the fact that the sword is pointing down makes me think of the Colosseum with the thumbs up, thumbs down, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. Which I think is, again, this is a very empowering justice to me. This is like, you get to decide who stays and who goes in your life. The scales are only there to help you. You don't need to use them. It's your call no matter what. You don't need, sometimes you don't need to weigh it out. Sometimes you can just put the scales to the side and say, hey, this person is bad for me, bad for me. It's time to cut them out. That's what this one is to me. And hilariously, this is someone who's heavily consulting their scales and hasn't made a decision about their sword yet. This is from the Distant Past Tarot, which is one of my favorites to use with other people. Come on, stay focused. It's a like classical painting collage deck, and it is so good, and the cardstock is delicious. I don't actually have a lot of thoughts on this particular justice, though, other than that she's gorgeous and that she seems to be taking her time with her decision. Which I think that might be just be the difference here between this one and other ones is it's okay to take time with your decision. Gather your evidence, weigh it out, take time and care with your decisions. Because majors are generally a major event in your life. This is something where you really want to think about it. This is about deliberation. So I guess I had more to say about that than I thought. And then last but not least, we have another one that I struggle with, another one that doesn't have scales, doesn't have swords. And this is the one not safe for work deck, so younger people and people who are squeamish about nudity. This is from the Tarot des Femmes Erotiques. It is a burlesque deck, I think is probably the best way to put it. And it's all female bodies, and there is no clothing on most of these cards, and there's definitely not clothing in this card. So you've been warned. All right. Wait for decision. I don't think it's so much that I struggle with this card as much as I dislike it. I don't like the idea of justice being a force outside of yourself. All of my other justices that I chose, you might have noticed that I have a very, either they're offering to help you, or they are you. That's kind of been my interpretation with them. This is someone waiting on the jury, to me. That's what this is. This is almost like, I don't want to say it's like a victim because the decision hasn't been made yet, but this is someone who has to put their faith in someone else to make the verdict for them. And that bothers me. That bothers me so much. As a person who really looks to the cards to be empowering, and in particular looks to this deck to be empowering, because this is usually a deck that gives me a lot of very positive, much needed messages. But wait for decision, and this like listening at the keyhole, hoping that that jerk ends up in jail and that you're free. I hate it. I hate this card. This is like my least favorite justice of all time, and I hate to say it. There you go. So this has been Surrounded by Decks for the Justice card. I definitely think I'll be doing one for Judgment later this week, and I would love to do one for the Star at some point. So I don't know if I'll do all the majors, but I definitely want to participate more. I'm really excited to do it. It was a lot of fun. I highly encourage other people to do it. The idea is basically go through your decks, pick out a few of one of your favorite or an intriguing major arcana, maybe one you struggle with, like I'm going to do with Judgment, and just kind of talk about it. And it's very validating, actually, as somebody who has a lot of decks and goes, do I really need all these? To go, no, I literally get a different message from every single card. Yes, it's a variation on a theme, but it's a different message. And when you're drawn to work with a different deck, the tone comes across completely different. So highly encourage participating. Thank you to K Cris for hosting this, and to Elyse from Wild Moon Woman for bringing it to my attention with her video about the death card. And I hope to see you all very soon. All right, bye.